My name is Kevin Laws, retired special agent from Homeland Security and Investigations. I was just interviewed on the Keith Andrew Network. It was a fabulous job. We had a great time. If you're interested in reading my book, Hunter of the Damned, A Walk Through Hell, it's a memoir of my investigations. I investigated internet crimes against children for nearly 20 years, online undercover for 11 years. Watch the episode. It was a great time. Have a great evening, everybody. Be safe and be well.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host Keith Andrew, and you're watching 1196. That's right, over 1196 episodes are available on YouTube. Follow that link below. Like, share, subscribe. I am your host Keith Andrew. The following is brought to you by the Keith Andrew Network. The show is called Talk Show Host with a Learning Disability. We're here with a great guest. He already introduced himself in the beginning of the show, but with that being said, you are a book author. So the first subject we're going to talk about is icebreakers. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Keith Andrew, for having me. It's greatly appreciated. My name is Kevin Laws. I am a retired special agent from Homeland Security Investigations. And I had a pretty unique job, actually a very unique job. I investigated internet crimes against children for just under 20 years. And if it couldn't get any worse, it does. I worked online undercover for 11 years. First 2 years undercover, my persona was that of a little girl, so I was playing a little girl. And then the last 9 years, it really got dark. I was playing an adult, offering my kids to the bad guy. So for 9 years, I played the bad guy, and that was pretty dark and horrifying. Now I'm retired and wrote a book about my career. It's a memoir. It's called Hunter of the Damned, A Walk Through Hell, and it is a shocking read.
And how is your book available? It's available on TikTok, Amazon.
It's available everywhere. I have my own website. If you really want to just spend a whole lot of money, buy it off of Amazon. It's really expensive off of there. Not because of me, it's because of Amazon. If you want the best price, get it directly off my website or off my TikTok shop.
Well, you mentioned prices, and that's actually a subject we will get to in a little bit. And we're going to talk here on the Keith Andrew Network. It's freedom speech, self-expression, unlike Bill Maher or Jimmy Fallon. We're not going to hide behind our sponsors. Well, if you talk about this, we're not going to sponsor you. Here on the Keith Andrew Network, it's freedom, speech, and self-expression. If you don't like it, tough shit. Because
I don't buy that.
No, I agree with you. Well, first of all, thank you for your service. I appreciate that.
Well,
But
thank you very
actually,
much.
you mentioned Homeland Security, and I want to ask you one question. There's so many questions I want to ask you, but I don't know how much information you can give. On where were you on September 11th?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I was in the process of moving from Yuma, Arizona up to Anchorage, Alaska. So I was in my hotel room with my wife, and my son called, who was in the Air Force, in a panic and said, turn on the news, turn on the news. So that's where I was, watching the news before the second plane hit.
Now, for me, I was, let's see, 2001. Well, let's look at it like this. 2003, I was 15. So, yeah, I was 13 years old. I was in middle school when it happened. It really was a discussion day.
Yeah, that was not good. Yeah, it was interesting, because we were traveling, and then, when we're flying back, everything was, first of all, we didn't know if we were going to get to fly back or not, because we had just got up there the day before. So on the flight back, that was pretty tense.
I know this is a touchy subject. I do apologize, but I do find it interesting. The reason I find it interesting is because you always hear it. And there's so many movies about, Fahrenheit 9/11. You talk about the World Trade Towers with Nicolas Cage, but they never talk about the subway. And I'm always like, oh, there's pictures and everything. So you're telling me no one survived in the subway cars, or did some of the subway cars get through before the buildings fell? So it's those type of things that keep you awake at night, and like
Right.
you're trying to sleep, and I feel like someone smacks you inside the head, like, huh, I didn't really think of this. And I'm like, God damn it, I wanted to go to sleep. Now I'm gonna be up
Uh,
all night trying to figure it out. But I always found it interesting that people talk about coming out of the towers and all that, but they never talk about the subway. And why is that? And I
you
know it
know,
sounds like a stupid question, but
oh no, I don't know. I wasn't involved in any of that in no way, shape, or form. I was at that time I was heavy into working the child exploitation investigation. So that was always my well, not always my field. The last three-quarters of my career, that's the only thing I did with rare exceptions.
the reason I bring out September 11th is because there's certain events in history that bring people together. And on that day, it didn't matter if you were black, white, Asian, Spanish. It didn't make a difference. Everyone helped each other on that day. Now, fast forward to a couple of years later during the pandemic, it's the complete opposite. People were selfish. People were hoarding things. People would buy paper towels or soup and resell them at a higher price. And now a lot of people died. Not saying it's a competition or anything, but a lot of people died during the pandemic too. But my question is, why did it have to take an attack on America to get people together versus a pandemic where you saw people's nasty sides?
I wish I wish I could answer that. I don't know. It's just part of human nature, I guess.
That's true. But let's stay focused on your book. We can always go back to that later on. So, what inspired you to write your book?
Well, there's a saying in law enforcement called a shit magnet. There's one in there's a few in every department, and that happened to me. It's not a derogatory term, like most people think it is. But a shit magnet is the guy that gets a call of a barking dog, and it ends up to be a triple homicide, or it's a fender bender, and you respond, and it ends up in a shooting. But in the child exploitation realm, that was me. I got the calls that the other predators were like, that dude's a freak. So early on in my career, people were like, dude, you need to write a book because people's not going to believe this. So I started, gathering up bits and pieces. And then when I retired, I just, put it together.
Now, the characters in your book based off real people, or how did that come about?
Oh no, it's all real. The only thing fictional in my book is the bad guys' names because they don't deserve a voice in my book. And then there's survivor interviews in there, and their identity has been completely hidden. So as far as the bad guys, what I did is I just used a variation of their email address. And then when you're reading, there's actually undercover chat in there, between me and the bad guy. And in some of the chats, instead of my actual undercover name, it just says undercover. But other than that, it's it's the truth, 100%. There's nothing made up there.
Now, during the pandemic, has this given you an opportunity just to stay home and focus on your book, or how has the pandemic impacted your life?
Oh, what? No, because well, the rough draft was done in 2018. So I had to step away for about, 18, 19, oh, darn near, what, it was longer than I thought, 18, 19, 20, 21. Yeah, 3 years I stepped away because it was literally killing me. I couldn't do it. It's bad when you're sitting behind your computer crying so hard that you can't see the keyboard. So I said, that's it. I'm done. And then finally my lovely wife was like, "Hey, are you going to finish that book?" and that was towards the end of 21. I said, let me jump in there and tough it out and get it done. So that's what I did. So wasn't published until August of 22, so it hasn't been out that long.
Now, the next one is I want to talk to you about is production. As you know, that sounds like an oxymoron, but as you know, SVU, I call it pervert of the week. So, with that being said, do you think, I was going to say, isn't that a perfect segue? But I have green screens with special effects, but I don't have anything for War and Order. But I do like War and Order. It's a great show. But sometimes you watch it, it makes you cringe. But the reason I bring it up, do you think your book would make a good episode for SVU?
It would, and speaking of SVU, that's funny you said this. Somebody just asked me just recently. I was just come back from a conference, and somebody asked me about SVU and how accurate it was. They do a pretty darn good job. So whoever's doing their consulting is spot on. Um, yeah, some of my book covers 32 of my investigations, so a couple of them would make it, but the vast majority would never be on prime time. I mean, they would have to cut the details out because most of them are pretty horrific.
So, well, give us an example what you mean.
Well, I'll give you an easy one. This one would make a good episode. We hit this dude's house, and this is in the book. We hit this dude's house, and right at the end of the search warrant, Derek, the sergeant for the troopers, called us in, and he's like, we're all in a semicircle and looking into this guy's bedroom, and he pulls back the covers, and there is a stuffed horse there, pretty big. It's probably if it was standing upright, it's probably a little over 3 feet tall and maybe 3.5 feet long, like a kid's toy. And this thing is in an adult's bed. And Derek said, what do you see? And I was doing these cases long enough. I picked it up instantly. And then one of the people who was brand new, I think it might have been his first search warrant, Matt, and he couldn't figure it out. And then finally Derek picked up the horse's tail, and this dude had taken half of a Playtex glove, cut it off, and stuck it in the horse's butt, and there was a slit on the belly, and we thought it was just wore out. No, that was the buddy hole. So there was literally three guys that was tag teaming this poor stuffed horse.
I tell you, mental health is really freaking scary.
No, no doubt, right?
Well, let me
Yeah.
ask, well, if I may, where do you stand on, because I've been saying this for the past 12 and a half years. I support the Second Amendment. Now, you have the right to buy a gun for protection. If someone broke into my house, I'd be happy to blow them away. Not in that way, obviously. I swing only one way. But if you break into my house and you're threatening me and my family, you're not going to see the other side of that door. But there should be background checks. Do you agree or disagree?
Oh no, I agree 100%. There should be background check, and I don't know why everybody always beefs about that. What is the problem with I mean, you do a background check to get in an apartment for goodness sakes.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, why would you not have one to buy a gun? That's just silly. Never made any sense to me.
My thing is, if you have any form of learning disability or you're bipolar, then that's a red flag. You should not have the right to have guns because why would you give a gun to someone who's really bipolar and who can just snap off in any instant? Then you're asking for an episode of SVU to actually happen in real life. But you have, but yes, for driving, for apartments, for getting a job, they always do background checks. And that's fine. You want to have a gun, go right ahead. But if there's any red flags, then I'm sorry, but then your rights should be taken away because you're in endangerment.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, yeah, like I said, I don't know why the people are afraid of a simple background check. It's ridiculous.
Now, the next one I want to talk to you about is all the books that you have written over the years. How comfortable are you teaching your own class? Would you be interested in having your own writing class and teaching other people?
No, this was a one and done. I have. I have another 30, what? No, 28 cases I could write about, investigations I could write about, but that's it. This was hard enough. I do teach one class, a case study, and then I go around and I do talk about my book and about my career, and that's the teaching that I do.
And for people who want to get in touch with you, next subject I want to talk to you about is social media. I know that we met on TikTok and you sell your book on TikTok. Or is there any other social media websites you would like to promote or talk about?
Oh yeah, you can find me on YouTube at Hunter of the Damned. All of them are in some variation of Hunter of the Damned. So YouTube, if people would subscribe, that would be awesome. Like I said, I'm on TikTok, Hunter of the Damned as well, Instagram, Facebook. Gosh, where else am I on? Let's see, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, TikTok, YouTube, all some variation of Hunter of the Damned.
Now, let me ask you this, as a writer, how do you feel that does AI, well, let me ask you in general, do you think AI is something we should be concerned about? Because we've seen so many movies of Terminator and robots and all that. But I know it's two questions in one, but the first one was to stay on the AI. Do you think AI is the way of the future, or do you think people are just lazy and they want a robot to write a book for them?
Well, that's a couple different trains of thought. If you're just using AI just to write your book, I think you're doing yourself a disservice and you're doing the public a disservice. But the problem I have with AI is in the field that I was working under the child exploitation is, what's happening now is, and I'll take TikTok, for instance. Parents post all kinds of pictures and videos of their kids and dancing, all this stuff. And now what the bad guys are doing, they're using AI and they're taking the headshot of that child and they're putting on a body of a young person doing sexual acts, and then next thing you know, yeah, your kid is in some kind of a movie doing, unspeakable things. So that's the bad part of AI. Some of the bad part of AI.
And you mentioned TikTok. Well, let me ask you, not like a hypocritical question, but I want to hear your opinion. For someone who went undercover and who was career of finding these mentally, and it's uncensored, by the way, sick, fucked up people, now you're using these social websites to sell your book. And I'm not saying you're a hypocrite or anything, but I'm saying, isn't it kind of like a double-edged sword that your job was to go find these sickos, but at the same time, you're on social media, so it's kind of like okay. I'll give you an example. My parents like to say that the best thing and the worst thing ever invented was the internet.
Right.
Because if it wasn't for the internet, I wouldn't have met you through a hole in the wall. And technology came a long way. We help people with cancer. We help people live longer. But it is human nature to do bizarre and mentally disturbed things. Hint TikTok and your job, and where you know what I mean. But TikTok is a double-edged sword because it it isn't social media isn't the problem. It's how you use it. Like George Collins said, guns don't kill people. People with guns kill people. So it's the individuals that abuse things that causes problems.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just, the thing is, I don't have to worry about it. My kids are grown. My grandkids are grown already. So that's a moot point for me. But the thing with the parents is they need to just be aware of what's out there and how they depict their children online. You know, my whole thing was this. Listen, I understand people want to put their kids out there and promote them and all this stuff, and they're cute doing all these wonderful things. What I tell parents is this: listen, if you want, if you don't, if you're not close to your relatives, get on Zoom or do a TikTok live and only do it for subscribers and have your kids dance away and all that stuff. Why are you posting it for the whole world to see? And and I was watching one of the videos popped up on my feed a couple months ago, and the angle of the camera was bad. And it was a little girl, and I actually replied to the woman and said, "Listen, you might want to take this video down because the angle of that camera is really bad." And she never replied to me, so I don't know whatever happened, but because people don't pay attention to that kind of stuff. They're just like, oh, look, here's, Jamie and Joey, and look what they're doing. And yeah,
No, I agree. There's a big TikToker. I don't care. He's an asshole. He's a big TikToker, and he played a song, and one of the lyrics in the song was "little kids." And I said to him, "Yeah, you shouldn't really be playing that song on TikTok. That's a red flag." Of course, he blocked me because I because I said that to him. But it's kind of like one of those things. You to be in the public eye. For me, I'm a talk show host with a learning disability. So for me, I have to be on, for right now anyway, be on social media. And if you're in the entertainment world, yes, you should be on Facebook, but professionally. It has to be professionally done. Just saying, hey, this is my kid in the background. We're just dancing and all this other crap. Then you're setting yourself up for something for somebody to take it out of content or just misconstrue it. No,
yeah,
I'm against my niece wants to have social media. I'm against having my nieces having social media. It's like wait till you're 21, then you can do something. But even when you become 21, what are you exactly using it for? Because for you, you're using it for your book. For me, I'm using it for my talk show. So we're trying to be entrepreneurs. We're trying to be, you know, get yourself out there as a professional way. If you're just going to use it for shits and giggles, that's where all the problems start.
right. Well, I will give a massive shout out to TikTok, and I've never been on another social media platform that does this. Their filters are on it. I've been in two lives now where one I'm talking to a friend of mine, and she's doing a live, and her son comes in, and she's like, "This is XYZ, and he's learning guitar, so he wants to play a little solo for you." I'm like, "Well, that's cool." So he comes in the kitchen, and he plops down with his guitar, and he doesn't have a shirt on,
Yeah,
right? He has long pants on, jeans, and that live was shut down in less than 5 minutes.
good.
And then there was another instance where another one of my friends is on doing a live, and we're just chatting, and their son comes in and gives her a hug before bed, and we don't see his face. We just see like a quarter of his back and the back of his head, just enough to tell that he doesn't have a shirt on. Same thing. TikTok closed that live down in a second, and I said, now that's impressive.
No, for that, I agree with you 100%. But the down things that I don't like about TikTok is I can't really promote my episodes because I made my own introduction. It's professional, obviously, for my shows. But if they don't have the license to the music, they kind of flag it. And I'm like, well, what about if I take my introduction out of the show? But still, but there's certain music, like if you made one like with the Beach Boys, or you did one with Beyonce, and it's a great video. And if you want, I can make you a video if you want for your book. And you try to, oh, this is really wonderful. Let's share it on TikTok. If it doesn't, if they certain words or copyrighted infringements come up, then they kind of take it down. So it's a good and a bad. Yes, if you do stupid things, you should automatically have your account taken down. But if you're not doing anything wrong and you're trying to entertain your audience, then it's kind of like maybe it's not saying strict is the problem. It's you don't want to be too strict. You don't want
Yeah,
to be like
yeah,
if you sneeze, then they take you down because you sneezed.
yeah, yeah. I agree. There
But
needs to be a happy medium there.
absolutely. And now I'm going to pass it over to you. Was there anything you want to talk about? Anything you want to promote? This is your time.
Oh no, that's it. I got a bunch in there talking about my book. I go live on TikTok twice a week at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Wednesdays and Saturdays. I do a book talk. I talk about my book and about my career. That's been fun. It's been interesting. I've only been doing it for like 2 months now, so pretty new to the TikTok live. Um, Yeah, when you're a self-published author, it's hard to get yourself out there, and it's just my book's just starting to take off good now.
Now, if you don't mind me for accident, there's one more subject I do want to talk to you about: price inflation. You mentioned about Amazon, how on your website you get your book cheaper. But do you think, how I see it actually, it's they shrink things more. They shrink inflation. That's the new thing. It's shrink inflation. They shrink things, make them half the size, and they charge more. Do you think that will ever go away?
Oh, no way. Yeah, and that's a perfect segue into, let's talk about my book. It's 42.99 on Amazon. And when I first listed it, or they listed it, I want to, and I'm like, I don't want to list my book for 43 bucks. I said, who's going to buy that? So I go in, you have a dashboard and you can change it. So I wanted it to be 25.
Right.
And then once I change, it's like, oh no, you owe us money.
Of course.
So the cheapest it can be listed with me making pennies, literally, is 42.99. Off of a $43 book, I make $5.04.
Yeah, I mean, it's most at Instagram, but thank God they, knock on wood, they don't charge you for that yet. But I mean, like Netflix and Hulu and Disney, they're all jacking up their prices. I agree. I do have a couple questions for you off the air, but this will be shared on all social medias. It was a real honor and privilege having you as a guest. I hope I made a good impression on you, because all our episodes are different. You're more than welcome to be back on the show anytime you like. Any product, any new products that you want to sell, any new projects that you're working on, we would like to support you. But until we meet again, it was a real honor and privilege, and I'll catch you later. Thank
Thank
you,
you very much.
and have a good night.
Show and supporting me, and my message is all that matters.